What's going on, guys? Today we are here with a 2015 Volkswagen Jetta. So today I'm going to give you a review of this car, go over the basics, and maybe give you an idea if this is a car you'd be interested in buying. Okay, so first things first, we're going to start off by talking about which exactly Jetta this is. So this is a base model 2-liter Jetta. You can see right here we have the 2-liter 4-cylinder. In this model year, the MK6, with the 2015 in particular, there's generations where you can get a 1.6 liter turbo or 1.4 liter turbo, or the 2-liter 4-cylinder non-turbo NA. So this is by far the slowest version of them all, but also the least maintenance generally because it's the least complicated. So the 2-liter model 4-cylinder engine makes about 115 horsepower and 125 pound-feet of torque. So that's not very much. This is definitely an economy car. If you're buying this, you're just not looking for performance. You are looking for a generally reliable, simple car that will get you from point A to B. And that's the basis of buying the 2-liter base model version. It comes with a standard key fob, the switchblade key. Volkswagen's been using this key for a long time, so if you've ever owned a Volkswagen, you'll be familiar with this. Other than that, there's nothing really to write home about on the outside. Simple 4-door design, really basic, not much back here. Even when you're looking on the inside, depending on which version you had, you could have a armrest that pulls down from here with cup holders, but there's even some models like this one in particular that has nothing in the back, just the simple seats, nothing extra, and there's nothing else you can add back there. Moving on to the trunk, it's a fairly big trunk, nothing really here. An interesting point about them is that they have little hooks in the 4 corners of the trunk. So if you're trying to anchor something back here and make sure it doesn't move, you can put a strap across it and that will hold it in place. Now that's like pretty common for like trucks or SUVs and stuff, but for regular economy cars like a Civic and a Corolla, that's not very common. You can see it has swing arms for the trunk. That can be annoying because when you're closing your trunk, it swings into the luggage or whatever you have back here. I always prefer they either have hydraulics in the corner here, or they at least have a pocket for the swing arms to go. Therefore, you know exactly how much space you have available to you. Other than that, you have this one button here to unlock the trunk. This only works if the car is unlocked. Otherwise, it's just dead, and you can only unlock the car or unlock the trunk using the switch on the door or using the key fob. Or if the car is unlocked, then you can grab that handle and it'll pop up. Overall, I would say that the design of the 2015 MK6 Jetta is very sleek, fairly nice for the most part. There's some nice design cues, nice swooping lines, but nothing out of the box, not too round and not too square. Therefore, it'd be a pretty decent looking car for the average person who's going to look at it, and they'll be pretty much pleased with any design cues based on this vehicle. Alright, so moving on to the interior of the 2015 Jetta. Like I said before, it's a pretty base model car, so everything is fairly basic, but at the same time, that also means everything is fairly simple. So for your climate control, you simply have a dial for hot and cold, or cold and hot. You have your fan speeds 1 to 4, and then you have your controls as where you want the fan air to blow. Volkswagen's a little bit different. For a lot of cars will have more than 4 symbols, but all that happens is that if you want, let's say, air to the top vents and air to your feet, you just simply put the dial in between the two, and that will send it to, that'll split it between both. It's silly when you get to a point like between defrosting and feet, because you could have feet here in the defrosting. Either way, you can still have all accessibility to all your controls. They're just a little bit different. Now this model has the heated seats. There's very possible you could have one that doesn't have it. In that case, these switches will just be blank. The heated seats are 3-level heated seats, so you press them, they turn on to max right away, and then once you can choose to press it again, it'll drop down, press it a third time to 1, and then press it again to turn it off completely. I will say that the heated seats in this, although it's amazing and it's great that they have them, they're not the best in terms of control. So when you go to full, it gets very hot very quickly, which is good. But as soon as you drop down from 3 bars to 2, it's almost like it's not there. And 1 is also almost non-existent. So it's pretty much almost like you only have 1 level of heated seat, although you have 3. It's slightly better than if it was just an on and off switch, but it's still not the best in terms of control. For this model, you have the touch display here. It's a very basic touch display. I'll turn it on so you can get a good look at it. So now you can see here your touch display, pretty basic. If you have your phone connected to Bluetooth, It'll pull up your Bluetooth things right away. You can turn that off if you like to. If you have an SD card, you can have that set up in here. You can have an aux cord, and you can have your CD. This actually has a multiple CD system, so you can put more than one disc in, and it will keep them all stored within inside. But other than that, you just have your basic FM, AM, satellite radio if you've opted to have a satellite radio subscription. Your setup, which is just changing a couple things amongst the radio and telephone, and then your phone for your contacts if you preset, and media brings you right back to the CD. A pretty nice feature for the phone is that you can have essentially speed dial set up. So as soon as you press the phone, you have your speed dial, connect to your people, and you can press those right away and have them set up. Moving on to the gauge cluster, again, very simple. You just have your fuel tank or your fuel gauge, speedometer, tachometer, climate, and then you can scroll through the center to change a couple things. So this will be your current speed. This is average speed of kilometers driven, fuel to empty, average fuel economy, and things like that. You can just scroll through using this on the steering wheel, as long with these ones here and here, just going through various menus. You'll see also you have your cruise control on the steering wheel. Some models may not have this, so you'll just see it's blank on this side steering wheel and you only have this. Kind of an odd choice, since most cars will have cruise control and maybe not have Bluetooth or vice versa, but this one, it can go either way just depending on which model you have. And then you'll also notice that you have an OK button on this side when you're controlling, which also controls this menu up here, and then on this side it's just a blank, just for symmetry. So we're going to take the Volkswagen out for a drive. You may notice it's a little bit loud in here right now because this car is equipped with its winter tires. They're a little bit more noisy. Generally, the car is fairly quiet and a very insulated experience. So you notice that I'm driving the 5-speed manual model. Unless you had got the GTI usually for around this time, or the GLI, if you're talking about the Jettas, you would get a 5-speed manual. Otherwise, you may get a 6-speed manual. There's kind of an overlap within the generation of what type of transmission you can get at what period of time. Most of them would be a 5-speed manual, with reverse being next to first, as they commonly are in Volkswagens. This car, being a manual, is actually one of the easiest manuals I've ever driven in terms of getting it going. It has an extremely light clutch that is also extremely linear. So with that being said, there's no hiccups or anything when you're trying to get going, and it makes it very easy if someone who's trying to learn how to drive manual to do it on this. You don't have like a springy clutch where it pops up right at the top, or it's kind of unpredictable. The grab point's fairly high, but it doesn't do anything weird or funky, which makes it pretty easy to get accustomed to. And it's not hard to press in the pedal, therefore you don't feel like you're not doing something right, especially when you're trying to teach someone. It also makes it pretty easy on your leg if you have to drive in traffic often. The gearing on this model is done in a way that's not very common when you have a 5-speed manual car. But I'll say it's actually very good if you're driving on the highway. So usually you'll be able to go through all 5 of your gears. You'll be able to drive in 5th in the city, no problem. Maybe when you're on the highway at about 100 kilometers, 60 miles per hour, the RPMs would be somewhere at high 2000s, 28, 25, 28. In some cars, depending on how it's set up, maybe even 3000 RPM. In this car, with it being a 5-speed, the RPMs are actually pretty low when you're at 100 kilometers an hour. They're just at about 2100 RPM with a 5-speed. So again, like I said, very low, which is really good for fuel economy when you're on the highway. The downfall of having it set up like that is that 5th gear is kind of useless when you're going below 60 kilometers an hour. Below 60 kilometers an hour, you can't, if you go into 5th gear, you're just bogging the engine. The car you can't really move, you can't accelerate. You would always have to downshift to 4th and 3rd to get it moving. So it's geared in a way that's very good for fuel economy when you're getting up and cruising, but any other point in time, it's not the best, because it literally is just too high of a gear ratio to not allow it to move or have any power unless you're already up at a higher speed, and even then it's just the 2-liter 4-cylinder, doesn't have that much power to begin with, making it very sluggish at that type in those situations. The shifter on this car, although the whole experience is very easy to drive, the shifter is not very say confidence inspiring. When you slide into gears, it doesn't really feel like, you can feel that you've engaged the gear, but it's not the most like satisfying. It's pretty, not loose or anything, but it doesn't really feel like not much is happening. There's very little engagement coming from the gear selector overall. But again, that's all just for like ease and comfort. So this car really makes for a very good commuter car if you want to buy it in the manual. It makes it very easy to travel back and forth. It's fairly comfortable, it's fairly quiet, you get decent gas mileage, it's very simple, so there's generally fewer things to break. But if you're looking for anything with like much performance or a little bit more luxury, I generally say this is not the car for you. But for the most part, it does everything you would need if you just need a car to get you back and forth. It also has a hill start assist. So if you put the car into first gear or reverse and put your foot on the brake, once you release the brake, it will hold the car for about 2 seconds, giving you a chance to take off if you're on a hill, which makes it easier, especially for people who are learning manual, to get started on a hill, reversing, or going forward. The handling characteristics of this car as well are very decent. It handles fairly well. You wouldn't have any complaints with it. It has limited body roll, and the ride is very comfortable at the same time. So it's not a harsh ride to compromise for that limited body roll, but it gives you the best of both worlds in that case. So what you don't have in power, you have from decent handling, and it makes it a fairly comfortable car that I believe most people will be satisfied with. On that note, guys, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you learned a little bit about the 2015 Jetta, and I hope if you find it interesting, maybe now you know if you want to buy this car or not, and it gave you the information you need to make that decision. I'll catch you in the next video.